Listen now to the book, One Night with the Hybrid King, written by the author Anya Curves. If you want to buy the ebook, link in the description. Subscribe to the channel. Like and share. Chapter 131 Aria. I wake up startled, the sound of loud, constant pounding echoing through the lower floor of my new home, reverberating like drums of alarm. For a moment, I'm frozen, my heart racing wildly as I try to discern the source of the noise. Caelum's voice cuts through the silence, laden with a desperation I rarely hear from him. It spurs me into action, the fear wrapping around me like a suffocating cloak. Throwing on a robe, I rush downstairs. The moment I open the door, I'm struck by the expression on Caelum's face. His eyes, deep and usually filled with strength, are clouded with remorse and a sadness that seems almost tangible. "Caelum, what happened? Are the children okay?" I ask, my voice trembling with worry. The words barely escape my lips, and the weight of fear tightens around my chest. Without a word, he hands me a crumpled piece of paper. His fingers tremble slightly as he does so, and the sight only heightens the growing sense of dread within me. "Is Alexander home?" he asks as he steps into the house without waiting for an invitation, his presence filling the room with an almost unbearable tension. "I don't know. I just woke up." My response is automatic, my mind struggling to catch up with the unfolding events. My gaze falls on the paper in my hands, and as I read the words scrawled across it, it feels as though the ground has disappeared beneath my feet. A pit opens in my stomach, and my world begins to spin. "What is this?" I stammer, my voice fragile with disbelief and shock. My eyes search Caelum's, but his expression only confirms what I don't want to believe. He's tense, his muscles taut like cords ready to snap. The strong pulse in his neck betrays the heightened state of alert he's in, and I can hear his heart pounding like a war drum. "Where is Seraphina?" My voice rises, bordering on hysteria. My mind is already conjuring the worst scenarios, each one more dreadful than the last. "She's not in the prison. I checked with the guards. Someone took her out, probably Alexander," Caelum reports. I shake my head in disbelief. "No, Alexander wouldn't do this. Not after everything we've been through, not again." A simmering anger, mixed with disbelief, courses through me as I dash upstairs, heading straight to our bedroom. I need something, anything that makes sense. Bursting into the room, my breathing ragged, my eyes dart around, searching for any sign of explanation. Then I see it, a letter lying by the side of the bed. My fingers tremble as I pick it up, and with each word I read, the ground beneath me crumbles once more. I can't believe what I'm seeing. Silent tears begin to roll down my face. I hear cautious footsteps behind me, and soon Caelum is standing at the doorway, watching me. He says nothing, but his eyes speak volumes, understanding, sorrow, and perhaps a trace of guilt. We were going to be happy here. We'd have children and live happily here. But now, my voice breaks, and the weight of my grief makes it impossible to continue. My knees give out, and I feel myself crumbling. Caelum crosses the room swiftly, wrapping me in a strong embrace. His presence, so steady, is the only thing keeping me from falling apart entirely. I allow him to comfort me, though it does little to ease the crushing sense of my world falling apart. "I'm sorry, Aria. I tried to stop this, tried to prevent Alexander from doing something so foolish," he laments, his voice deep but tender. His hands glide over my back in a comforting gesture, though it doesn't erase my pain. "What do we do now?" I ask between sobs, the urgency in my voice undeniable. I clutch the crumpled paper tightly, as if it might offer answers. If what Seraphina wrote on this paper is true, we have to do something. My desperation is evident. Caelum pulls back just enough to meet my eyes. He seems to have regained his resolve, and his voice comes out firm. "I'll summon all the neighboring kingdoms, so we can stand together against this entity," Caelum explains. "We must unite, or we won't stand a chance. Is there anything I can do? I need to do something to help." I plead, my voice laden with determination and sorrow. "Go to the castle library. We'll need spells that can help us bind this entity." Unable to believe that my honeymoon lasted a mere 12 hours, I walk alongside Caelum back to the castle. Every mile feels like an eternity. The crushing weight of the reality of what Alexander has done consumes me entirely, making it difficult even to breathe normally. Caelum stays focused, his phone in hand as he issues quick, precise orders to his advisors. His voice is firm, but I can hear the tension beneath it. He's trying to maintain control, but I know this situation is eating away at him just as much as it is me. My thoughts are stuck on the one truth I refuse to accept. Alexander, my husband, has been possessed by an entity. The absurdity of it hammers in my mind like a dissonant melody, playing over and over. I try to hold on to reason, but every time I remember Caelum's expression or the words Seraphina wrote in that note, I feel myself losing the battle against despair. Just yesterday, I was happy, living a perfect life with the man I loved. Aria, are you listening to me? Caelum's voice pulls me from my thoughts, and I look at him, startled. He touches my shoulder, sending a shiver down my spine. We're here. Oh, right. Great, I mumbled distractedly. Without saying another word, I head straight to the castle library. My focus is on finding anything about binding spells. Hours pass, but I lose all sense of time. My mind is buried in words and symbols, and only my determination keeps me alert. But then, a strange sound makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Aria, a raspy, cold voice calls my name. It comes from the flames in the nearby fireplace. I snap my head up, my heart racing. My eyes fixate on the flickering fire, which now takes on a distinct form. It's Seraphina. Her silhouette appears in the orange contours of the flames, but she looks different, almost unrecognizable. Her once vibrant golden eyes are now irreparably burned. Seraphina? Is that you? I ask, my voice laced with disbelief and fear. I step closer to the fireplace, but my movements are cautious, as though her image might suddenly erupt into something even more terrifying. Yes, girl. I don't have much time, Seraphina responds impatiently. I tried reaching Caelum, but my powers are failing. The entity I summoned, I didn't know it would possess Alexander. That wasn't supposed to happen. The crackling of the burning wood fills the silence that follows her words, but my anger starts to rise, burning as fiercely as the flames before me. You tricked him, made him believe he was doing something noble. I accuse, my voice seething with hatred. No, Alexander came to me. None of this was supposed to happen. By the gods, I lost my sight, Aria, she snaps back, exasperated. For the first time, I notice her form flickering unevenly in the flames, as if her energy is unstable. We don't have time to argue. Malachar, that's the name of the entity. Malachar, the soul destroyer. The name echoes in my mind like thunder, sending a chill through my entire body. The flames crackle on, almost hypnotic, as Seraphina's voice melds with the popping of the burning wood. What should we do, Seraphina? I can't read the grimoires anymore. Malachar took my sight. I tried to bargain with him, but he only allowed me to see the souls of people, nothing else, Seraphina explains bitterly. Look for a binding spell and a banishment ritual that can send him to the forbidden realm through a name link. My anger flares again, hotter than the flames before me. Why should I trust you? It's because of your arrogance that we're in this mess. I accuse, my voice dripping with rage. Because there's a chance Alexander is still alive in there, she counters quickly, her words hitting me like a blow to the chest. Don't you want your dear husband back?
Chapter 132, Caelum. Is that what she told you? My voice echoes through the library, heavy with doubt and skepticism. Aria doesn't stop for a second, pacing back and forth in the vast space filled with books. Her hands clutch and release the fabric of the shirt she's wearing, an involuntary reflection of the storm of emotions consuming her. Every movement she makes seems to amplify the tension in the room. Her eyes shine, intense and disturbed, as her feet tap an urgent rhythm on the polished stone floor. I watch her in silence, struggling against the urge to pull her into an embrace and whisper comforting words. But the weight of the situation is like an invisible wall between us. I want to promise that everything will be fine, but how can I offer a guarantee I don't even have myself? Every word from Seraphina echoes in my mind like a distant, annoying bell. Malachar, the entity from the Forbidden Realm. Just the name carries a dark burden. Now that we know its identity, we have a starting point, but there's still so much to be done. Yes, Aria responds, impatience spilling over in her voice. Her hands wave in the air as she speaks, as if trying to capture answers from the void. Seraphina also said that the wedding gift she gave you will be useful now. Do you still have it? I blink, taken aback by the mention of that gift. My eyes search hers, which are fixed on me with an intensity that's almost unsettling. She searches my face and body, as if trying to force the answer out of me. Huh? Caelum, do you still have the gift? She presses, her impatience hanging between us like a thick fog, suffocating and oppressive. Yes, I still have it, I admit, my voice calmer but no less tense. It's a book of forbidden magic. I never used it because, well, forbidden magic. I paused for a moment, trying to measure my words. I think Seraphina, at first, believed that my being part enchantress could be something in common between us. Aria narrows her eyes, and her expression hardens like granite. Maybe, but now we don't have time to speculate on how your marriage could have been different, Aria responds coldly. Where is the book, Caelum? I take a deep breath, counting mentally to 3 to keep my composure. She's shaken, obviously. The way Alexander acted would shake anyone. But her tension spreads through the air like sparks near a powder keg. I try to ignore the impulse to respond in kind. Without another word, I turn on my heels and head toward my room. The castle halls are silent, but the sound of my boots echoes loudly, almost like an accusation. I push open the heavy door to my room and walk to the shelf in the corner, where I keep Seraphina's wedding gift. The book rests there, covered with a light layer of dust, as though time itself had tried to hide it. I pick it up, feeling the cold, ancient weight in my hands. Its dark cover, adorned with runes that seem to pulse faintly beneath my fingers, emanates an uncomfortable energy. I return to the library with the book, but as I enter, I'm met by a sound that makes my skin crawl. Seraphina's voice. She's talking to Aria, her voice coming from the flames in the fireplace. Did he take it? Seraphina asks, impatience evident in her tone. Yes, it's here. What do you want with it? I interrupt, distrust coloring every word. My hands grip the book firmly as I move closer to the fireplace. I watch Seraphina's form in the flames, and the sight is far more terrifying than Aria described. Her face, once beautiful, is now deformed. The golden eyes that once gleamed with cunning are now completely destroyed. Hollow, empty sockets that seem to overflow with a terrible void. What's left of her appearance seems to radiate a kind of dark energy that sends shivers down my spine. You'll need to perform the spell, Caelum. You have to practice forbidden magic. It's the only way to send him back. Seraphina responds urgently. Seraphina, you felt my powers fading yourself. I have almost no power left, I reply, frustration lacing my voice. Seraphina, or rather, the grotesque projection of her in the flames, slightly tilts her head. Her disfigured expression somehow still manages to convey impatience. For the gods' sake, your lack of knowledge will get us all killed. Her voice vibrates with a force that seems to make the very fireplace tremble. Caelum, you'll need to let go of your lycan side and embrace your enchantress side. I feel my entire body stiffen with her words. My heart races, a mix of anger and denial rising inside me. My enchantress side no longer exists. Did you lose half of your memory when Malachar ripped out your eyes? I respond, frustrated. Seraphina's charred lips twist into something that could be a smile or a grimace. It's hard to tell. If you had bothered to study your own powers, to learn about your magical heritage instead of running from it, you'd know it's possible to restore your enchantress soul. The knowledge is in the book I gave you, Seraphina explains. In that book, there's a spell that merges 2 souls into one. You could merge your soul with Drave's. That way, the life bond between you two would be broken, and your powers would return. The weight of her words falls like a stone on my chest. But before I can respond, Aria intervenes, her voice heavy with indignation. You knew there was a way to break the bond, and never told us? Her eyes shine with an anger that can't be concealed. Seraphina turns her flaming face toward Aria, her features marked by impatience and disdain. Am I supposed to share everything with you now? Or should the incompetent Caelum have cared to learn something about magic? He always hid behind what was easier, more convenient, Seraphina retorts. Aria steps forward, her posture rigid, as though she's about to launch a fatal accusation. But before she can respond, Seraphina vanishes. Her flaming figure dissipates, leaving only the crackling sound of wood burning. The library falls into a dense silence, interrupted only by Aria's quickened breath and the distant echo of Seraphina's words. This woman is impossible. Chaos follows her, wherever she goes. Aria complains. I cross my arms, letting my mind absorb the whirlwind of emotions we just faced. But she's right, I murmur, my words almost sounding like a confession. I never sought to understand my magical origins. I was so focused on pleasing my father, on being a true lycan for him and the pack. That I let my true nature die, I reply, my voice tinged with regret. Aria steps closer, and her hand finds my arm. Her touch is light, but it carries a surprising strength. There's comfort there, a tenderness that makes me exhale heavily. She looks at me with something that mixes compassion and pain, an expression so heavy it seems to strip me of all my defenses. I know you're grieving the loss of Alexander. I take a deep breath, my eyes locked on Aria. She's so close, but she feels unreachable, as though surrounded by an invisible barrier made of pain. I can feel it in every breath you take, Aria. It's in the way you avoid looking at me for too long, in the tremor of your hands when you try to hide your fragility. But know that I'm here. I love you. I'll always love you. And I'll do whatever it takes to make things right again. My words are a promise, a silent vow that comes from deep within me. Aria finally lifts her gaze, and our eyes meet. What I see in them shatters me, an ocean of hurt, mixed with a faint glimmer of something that might be hope, but which she tries to hide. Slowly, a sad smile spreads across her lips, the kind of smile that doesn't light up her face, but makes it even more vulnerable. Without saying anything, her hands rise to my face. Her fingers are soft, yet firm, as though afraid that by touching me, I might disappear. My heart races, but my mind is in complete chaos. Before I can process what's happening, Aria leans in and kisses me. The kiss is unexpected, like the first snowflake on a cold morning, but at the same time, it's laden with a melancholy that cuts deeper than any blade. It's soft, hesitant, as if she's allowing herself to feel just for a moment before pulling away. There's no passion here, no fire like we once knew. Instead, there's a bitter taste of farewell, mixed with the sweetness of something lost and, perhaps, irretrievable. My eyes close, and for a moment, I allow myself to sink into the sensation. But there's an emptiness in this kiss that makes me long for something more, something I know I can't have. When she pulls away, the silence between us is almost deafening. Maybe in another life, Aria whispers, her words hanging in the air like a prayer. Her lips are still close to mine, and her warm breath contrasts with the chill of the room. Maybe in another life, we would have been great together. The sadness in her voice is a blow directly to my heart. My mind is flooded with memories, blurred images of the conversation I had with the twins. They said Alexander would do something that would destroy her, but they also said she would be my mate. Their words now make sense, but the cost of this understanding is almost unbearable. I flash a small, almost involuntary smile, one that barely conceals the pain inside me. My head gives a slight nod, a silent response that carries everything I can't say aloud. Yes, maybe in the next one, I finally confirm. What a pleasant visit, little brother, Drave declares, his voice dripping with sarcasm but weak, as if every word is an effort. Did you come to reminisce? He taunts, a crooked smile tugging at his cracked lips. He stands in front of the cell, his hands gripping the bars tightly. His face is dirty, pale skin marked by deprivation. The deep hollows beneath his eyes contrast with the burning gleam still present, the arrogant look that has always infuriated me. Yet, something is different now. The imposing aura that used to dominate every room is still there, but dimmed, replaced by something darker. Failure clings to him like a shadow, etched into every line of his face. My gaze drifts over the damp, dark cell, where the stone walls are coated with moss and moisture pools in small puddles on the floor. The air is heavy, thick with the scent of iron and something sour, something that can only be described as the stench of death lurking close by. My heart is steady, but my mind throbs with conflicting thoughts. I came to finally sever our bond, brother, I respond coldly. Drave's eyes falter for the briefest moment, a fraction of a second that reveals the fear hidden beneath his mask of disdain. He knows what this means. He knows there is no easy way out for either of us. That moment is enough for me to see what scares him more than death. The possibility that I might take us both with me. The thought terrifies him, and that makes me laugh, a harsh, bitter sound that echoes through the room. You found a way, he murmurs with scorn. I confirm with a nod. What's the price? My life or yours? His question drips with irony, but I sense the tension in his words, a tension that reverberates within me. Yours always, I reply, my voice low, almost a whisper, yet as firm as the earth before an earthquake. I'm sorry it has to be this way. Drave laughs, but it's not a true laugh. It's an empty, sharp sound, laden with years of bitterness. He folds his arms over his thin frame, but his posture remains defiant, as though he's determined to face his fate, even if his eyes betray the opposite. No, you're not sorry, he retorts firmly. But it doesn't matter. We were raised this way. Let the next generation do better. My eyebrow arches, an involuntary gesture. His words hit me in an unexpected way, and for a moment, I try to decipher the hidden meaning within them. He smiles, a familiar, enigmatic smile that has always irritated me, and leans against the bars of his cell as though at ease, as though he's the one in control. I always have a plan B, little brother, Drave declares, his voice laced with a mixture of challenge and provocation. He gives me a wink, and my blood boils. Oh, then you'd better use it now, Drave, I reply. I begin to recite the spell. The words leave my lips in an ancient tongue, each syllable heavy with power and gravity. The air around us seems to shift. It grows denser, more vibrant, as though the magic itself is taking form. I feel my powers stir within me, a rising wave of energy coursing through every fiber of my being. My skin tingles, heat building with each word I utter. Drave collapses to his knees, his eyes wide with a mixture of pain and shock. He coughs violently, as though something inside him is being torn away. A purple aura begins to emanate from his body, an ethereal mist that floats through the air, flickering with a strange, menacing light. My voice does not waver. I continue the incantation, even as I feel Drave's resistance, even as I hear his groans of pain. The purple aura peels away from him completely, like a living entity, drifting across the cell toward me. When it strikes me, it feels like a physical blow. A shockwave ripples through my body, slamming me to the ground with force. My vision blurs, and for a moment, everything around me disappears. There is no sound, no light, only a void threatening to swallow me whole. But then, slowly, the sensation begins to shift. The emptiness gives way to a new energy, a strength I have never felt before. It is as though something long lost within me has been restored. I rise slowly, still gasping for breath, feeling the power pulse through me. It's raw, untamed, and yet controlled. It worked, I murmur to myself, astonished. My gaze shifts to Drave. He lies motionless on the ground, his frail body empty, dead. I allow myself a moment of silence. There is no triumph here, only a bitter sense of inevitability.
Chapter 133 Aria. From the balcony of my room in Caelum's castle, I watch as the small army from the kingdom of Syltirion approaches slowly. The group of soldiers arriving is visibly worn. Their armor, battered by battle and time, gleams only faintly, while their dragging steps reveal exhaustion and hopelessness. The energy emanating from them is suffocating, and my chest tightens with the bitter realization that our chances of defeating Malachar, the entity threatening to consume everything, are nearly non-existent. Even from afar, I can feel the weight of defeat hovering over them like an unrelenting shadow. I make my way down to the castle's entrance, the sound of my footsteps echoing through the silent corridors. When I reach the hall, Caelum is already there, as imposing as ever. His gaze is steady, determined, but there's something in his eyes that strikes me. A silent understanding he never puts into words, but that is always present. We exchange a brief glance, and for a moment, my mind fills with everything that has happened. Caelum has been patient, understanding, but that does nothing to fill the void in my chest. Each night without Alexander feels like slowly suffocating, drowning in an ocean of memories and nightmares. Malachar haunts my dreams, torturing Alexander, laughing as I stand paralyzed, powerless. I try to shift my thoughts to something more practical, but it's futile. The weight of responsibility pressing on me is overwhelming. I should be home, in the place Alexander bought for us, but the thought of it consumes me with pain. Being the Duchess of the Lowlands, having everything he left in my name, means nothing without him by my side. I just want Alexander back. Are you ready? Caelum whispers the question as soon as I reach his side. No, but what choice do we have? I reply, the honesty in my voice almost cruel. We step outside together to meet the small group of soldiers gathered in front of the castle garden. The wind is cold, carrying the scent of damp earth and dry leaves, a harbinger of what's to come. The conversation among the soldiers and the advisors is heated, filled with tense debates that make my heart ache. Caelum maintains his firm posture, but I can see the tension in his shoulders. What are the reports? Caelum demands, his voice steady and commanding. Finn, his advisor, steps forward, his expression somber. Your Majesty, the number of allies is lamentably low. After your brother's coup, many of the neighboring kingdoms are hesitant to offer support. They see no benefit in aiding Syltirion, as there are no strong political alliances with the kingdom, Finn explains, his voice heavy with regret. Caelum tilts his head in a gesture of understanding, but there's a spark of frustration in his eyes. I understand. We cannot demand that our allies fight a war that doesn't belong to Veridiana. But what about the soldiers from Syltirion? What have they said? Finn gestures toward a burly man whose armor is stained with dried blood and mud. This is the general of Syltirion, Your Majesty, Finn says, motioning for the man to step forward. Your Majesty, the situation in Syltirion is already lost, unfortunately. Our kingdom might have had another 50 years before falling into complete ruin. But now, with this entity consuming the souls of enchantresses, we believe Syltirion will be overrun and destroyed within a matter of days, the general explains. A weight settles over my heart at his grim statement. The next kingdom it will turn to will be Veridiana, Your Majesty, the general adds. Caelum takes a deep breath, and for a moment his expression hardens. Seraphina, have you heard anything about her? Caelum asks. I've heard she's been aiding the entity in acquiring the souls it consumes. She's betrayed us, Your Majesty, the general reports. A sigh of disappointment escapes Caelum. A moment of silence follows, and the tension thickens in the air. We'll have to trust that Seraphina is buying us time. She wouldn't give up Syltirion so easily, not after everything she's done so far, Caelum declares. His words hit me like a blow, and my mind screams to counter, to remind him that Seraphina is a viper, always driven by her own convenience. But I hold my tongue. I need to stay focused on what matters, finding a way to save Alexander. We'll take care of you and your wounded, General. But soon, we'll return to Syltirion and defeat Malachar. Caelum asserts. Caelum gently takes hold of my elbow, his touch firm but not intrusive, guiding me away from the circle of soldiers and advisors. His fingers are warm against my cold skin, and for a brief moment, I feel a wave of protection in his gesture, though it isn't enough to calm the storm raging within me. We walk across the damp grass, moving away from the main conversation until we reach a spot where the sound of voices fades, leaving only the cold wind whispering through the nearby trees. When Caelum finally stops, he looks as though he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Aria, I think it's best to send your mother and the twins to Syltirion for their safety, Caelum says in a quiet voice. My eyebrows lift instinctively. There's something in his posture, in the visible tension he tries to hide, that makes me question the true gravity of the situation. You don't think we can defeat him, do you? He hesitates, averting his gaze for a brief moment, as though trying to find the right words, but in the end, he opts for the truth. If what the general said about Seraphina is true, I don't want to risk leaving them here in Veridiana, Caelum explains. My throat tightens. He's right. I nod slightly in agreement, and together we head inside. When I find my mother, I quickly explain the situation. Her expression shifts immediately, panic written all over her face. The lines on her face seem to deepen as she absorbs my words, fear and worry growing visibly. Aria, my daughter, I can't take care of these children on my own. Come with us, Lyra pleads, her voice trembling. Mother, if there's even the smallest chance that Alexander is still alive, I need to go and try to save him. He's my husband. She tries to protest, but my decision is made. My tone hardens colder than I intend as I continue. I'm the Duchess of the Lowlands now. Money to hire nannies is not an issue, all right? I counter sharply. My mother has always wanted a life of wealth and luxury. Now she has it. These children deserve a mother, not hired help, Lyra responds, hurt in her voice. You're a mother. You'll know how to take care of them, I argue. She lets out a long, defeated sigh before turning and walking away, the sound of her footsteps echoing in the hallway as she heads to her room to pack. I make my way to the children's room, where I find Caelum kneeling beside Thorn and Aloan, trying to explain the situation in a gentler way. "It'll be like an adventure. You'll enjoy it," Caelum says with a cheerful tone. I linger in the doorway for a moment, watching the scene. Caelum has changed so much. He, who once seemed so distant and reserved, now shows tenderness and understanding with the children. The way he looks at them, the way he softly brushes their hair, is almost enough to make me forget, for just a second, the chaos around us. I walk over to them and sit beside Thorn. His little face is pale, his wide, curious eyes fixed on me. "You're going on a new adventure too, aren't you, Mama?" Thorn asks timidly. Caelum and I exchange a quick glance, a silent dialogue passing between us. "Yes, my angel, we are. But your adventure will be much more fun. I'm sure of it," I reply with false enthusiasm. Thorn seems to ponder my words for a moment before leaning slightly toward me and murmuring something that unsettles me. "Mama, the bad lady, she's not being bad anymore," Thorn whispers. "She's going to give you a gift as an apology. You need to accept it, okay?" My heart stops for a moment, and out of the corner of my eye, I see Caelum pale. His breathing catches before he forces himself to speak calmly. "Are you talking about Seraphina, Thorn?" Caelum asks, and my son nods. "All right, Aria will accept Seraphina's apology, won't she?" My blood boils. The mere thought of accepting anything from Seraphina disgusts me, but Caelum tilts his head slightly, pressing me to agree. "Yes, I'll accept it," I reply reluctantly. "Now let's pack your bags." Chapter 134 Aria. I stare at myself in the mirror, but the image I see doesn't feel like my own. I'm wearing black leather armor, fitted to my body as if it were molded directly onto my skin. It isn't heavy, as I had imagined it would be. On the contrary, it's surprisingly light and flexible, allowing for movements that feel natural, almost as if it were an extension of me. At my side, a dagger hangs in an elegant yet functional sheath. "This uniform is enchanted," Caelum explains, standing just behind me. His voice is deep, but there's a strange softness to his tone when he speaks to me. "If you need to shift during battle, the uniform will remain intact when you return to your human form." He steps closer, his presence as imposing as it is reassuring, placing a firm yet gentle hand on my shoulder. The warmth of his touch seeps through the leather armor, grounding me in reality. I feel the tension in his fingers, the concern hidden behind his composed gaze. "Please, if you're in danger, shift and call for me." "I'll come to you," Caelum says with earnest gravity. I clasp his hand with mine, our fingers intertwining briefly. It's a small gesture, but it carries more weight than words could ever convey. I squeeze his hand lightly, trying to convey a confidence I'm not entirely sure I feel. "I will." "Promise?" he insists, tilting his head slightly, his eyes locking me into a vow I cannot break. I offer a faint smile, attempting to ease the growing tension. "I promise, Your Majesty," I reply with a touch of humor, hoping to draw a smile from him. Once we finish preparing, we head to the grand courtyard, where the armies of Veridiana and Syltirion await us. The sight before me is both awe-inspiring and intimidating. Row upon row of lycans, some already shifted into massive wolf forms, wait with a fierce patience, their eyes glowing in the cold light of dawn. Among them, enchantresses wield weapons that seem to hum with pulsating magical energy, the glow of runes on their blades and staffs creating a hypnotic contrast against the dark backdrop. It's not an army as vast as the one Caelum assembled during Drave's coup, but there is a strength in the eyes of these warriors that transcends numbers. This is an army fighting not just for their lives but for the future of two entire kingdoms. Several enchantresses align in coordinated formation, opening portals. The magical passages shimmer in the air like liquid mirrors, reflecting a devastated, shadowy world on the other side. As we cross into Syltirion, an invisible weight seems to settle on me. The kingdom lies in ruins. The sky is an oppressive gray, laden with heavy clouds that feel like they're devouring any hope. The ground is cracked and blanketed in dust. Dark creatures I'd never imagined roam the desolate land. Some are humanoid in form, but their movements are erratic, like marionettes controlled by a sinister force. Others are grotesque beasts, their bodies twisted, their eyes gleaming with pure malice. For a moment I'm frozen, my feet rooted to the ground, as soldiers rush past me. The clash of weapons and war cries fill the air, but my mind struggles to process it all at once. I feel a strong hand grip my shoulder. "Track Seraphina's scent and find her," Caelum commands. I nod quickly and begin focusing on my sense of smell, trying to isolate her scent amidst the overwhelming stench of decay, blood, and fear. At first, it feels impossible, but after a few minutes, I catch the faint but unmistakable aroma. I run toward the ruins of the castle, dodging possessed enchantresses who resemble the undead and facing creatures that churn my stomach with fear. Caelum fights beside me, our actions perfectly synchronized, as though we share the same instincts. When we finally reach the castle, the sight is even more desolate. Half of the structure is destroyed, its blackened stones scarred by time and war. Inside, the halls are shrouded in darkness, lit only by the flickering flames of sparse torches. Seraphina's scent grows stronger, and I follow it with haste. At last, I find Seraphina collapsed at the base of a grand staircase, her frail body nearly swallowed by the shadows. Her face is gaunt, her once luminous skin now sickly and pallid. Her hair, once a cascade of silken red, is now dull and tangled. Seraphina! I call out to her in desperation. She doesn't respond immediately, and my throat tightens as I approach, calling her name over and over. When she finally opens her eyes, she coughs, and a trail of blood drips from her mouth. "Took you long enough, huh?" she remarks weakly, but with a hint of sarcasm. "Where is Caelum?" "Outside. We need to get you to him," I reply, trying to lift her off the ground. The moment my hands touch her shoulders, she lets out a piercing scream of pain that echoes through the empty corridor, ripping through the tension in the air. I stop immediately, worry rising within me like an unstoppable wave. Then I see it. What's wrong? Her legs are broken, twisted at grotesque angles that make me swallow hard. "Leave me here, Aria. I'm of no use anymore," Seraphina says, her voice defeated. "I failed. All of this is my fault." Her words hit me like a knife, but there's no time to let the impact sink in. Outside, the sounds of battle are deafening. The clash of metal against metal, the howls of the lycans, and the war cries of the enchantresses create a symphony of chaos that reverberates within the ruined castle. "Yes, I agree with you." I snap, bitterness lacing my tone. "And that's exactly why you can't give up now, Seraphina. You have to fix this mess you created." She lets out a weak laugh, but I see blood dripping from the corners of her lips. It's a sight that makes me want to scream, but I hold it in. "Seems becoming a lycan has given you the courage to argue, hasn't it?" she remarks with humor. "Unfortunately, Aria, I can't go on." "Yes, you can," I shout back, almost screaming. "You have to. Caelum needs you to complete the spell. He studied the book. He can't perform the banishment spell alone." Seraphina shakes her head, and I see her start to cry. Her tears are blood. "I'm sorry, Aria," she murmurs, her voice thick with regret. "What I did was a mistake. I wanted to save my kingdom. It was my duty, and I failed at everything. Please forgive me." Her words constrict my throat. A part of me wants to scream that there's no forgiveness for what she's done, but another part, the part that's tired of carrying so much hatred, wants to reach out and offer something she may not deserve. She searches for my hand in the air, and I take it, feeling the frailty in her fingers. "I know there's no forgiveness for what I did to you. I accept my sins and my choices," she says, her trembling voice filled with remorse. "But I need you to accept what I'm about to give you." I shake my head, not understanding what she means. She grips my hand tighter, her gaze intensifying, as if willing me to grasp the gravity of the moment. "Just as Caelum transferred his enchantress soul to Alexander, I will do the same for you. I'm sorry Alexander was caught up in this. He wasn't supposed to be possessed." No, I can't accept this." "You must." Seraphina snaps with urgency. "If you want to end this, you have to accept this gift. Becoming an enchantress is a gift, Aria. Just like Caelum's bite was a gift to you. This is my gift. Accept it." I hesitate, feeling the weight of the moment crush me. My hands tremble, my heart races, and everything inside me wants to scream no, but then the image of Caelum outside, fighting for our lives, flashes in my mind. "All right," I stammer, my voice barely above a whisper. Seraphina wastes no time. Her lips begin murmuring words in a language I don't understand, a spell that reverberates in the air around us. My entire body begins to vibrate, as if an electric current is surging through my veins. A golden, pulsating beam of light forms between our hands, connecting us with an energy so powerful it almost knocks me backward. Slowly, Seraphina's strength begins to fade. The little color left in her skin drains away, her eyes close gradually, and her breathing grows weaker. The beam of light diminishes until it vanishes, but inside me, something new awakens. It feels like a torrent of magical energy is now coursing through my body, filling me with a power I never imagined I could possess. Seraphina collapses onto the staircase, her body motionless. And I, kneeling beside her, feel the weight of what I've just received. Chapter 135, Aria. I run toward the place where Caelum remains outside the castle. Every step is a battle against the chaos around me. The sounds of the fight are deafening, a cacophony of screams, howls, and the metallic clash of swords. The air is thick with the smell of blood and burning, making each breath an effort. The scene is a nightmare brought to life. Fallen bodies and chunks of castle stone crumbling around us. As soon as I step outside, my eyes lock on the scene ahead. Caelum and Alexander are locked in a brutal fight. But Alexander, the man I once knew, my husband, is unrecognizable. He is no longer himself. Malachar has taken complete control of his body, twisting him into a distorted specter of the man he once was. Alexander's once light brown hair is now completely dark, as if it absorbs the light around him. His eyes, formerly a warm and deep blue, now burn with a fiery crimson, glowing like molten rubies. But his face is the worst. Thick red lines, pulsing like lava, streak across his temples and down to the center of his face, warping his features with a cruelty that seems almost symbolic. His aura is suffocating, radiating malice and overwhelming power. Caelum fights with every ounce of strength he has, alternating between physical blows and powerful spells. He shifts into his hybrid form, half human, half lycan, growing to twice his size, an imposing and beastly figure. His muscles ripple under dark fur, and razor-sharp claws gleam in the dim light of the battle. He is fierce, but Malachar's power is immense, and their clash is so violent that each blow shakes the ground beneath them. I realize there's no time to wait for Caelum to break free from Malachar. I do what he asked me to if I ever found myself in danger. I shift, but something is different this time. I don't just become a wolf. My body transforms so intensely that I almost don't recognize it. I feel bones and muscles reshaping into something new, something fiercer. When the process ends, I realize I've become like Caelum, a hybrid creature, bestial, half-human, half-lycan. The enchantress energy now coursing through me amplifies the transformation, making every fiber of my being thrum with a power I've never felt before. Caelum? Caelum! I call out to him through my thoughts. Aria? Where are you? Did you find Seraphina? He asks, panic evident in his voice. I quickly explain that I'm fine, and what Seraphina has done. I can send him back to the Forbidden Realm. Just bring him closer. We can do this together. Even in the heat of battle, Caelum understands. He adjusts his movements, steering Malachar toward me. Each step they take in my direction feels like an eternity. When they finally draw close enough, the energy between Caelum and me connects, creating a wave of palpable power in the air. Together, we begin reciting the banishment spell, our voices resonating in unison, both aloud and in our minds. It's an ancient tongue heavy with strength and meaning, vibrating through the ground and the very sky above us. Malachar, sensing the danger, becomes even more feral, attacking with renewed fury. I use the newfound powers within me to fight back. My claws slice through the air, my movements sharp and precise, as though ancient instincts have awakened within me. Each strike from Caelum and me forces Malachar back until, finally, the ground beneath us begins to crack. A deep fissure opens, a dark and threatening abyss that seems to stretch into the core of the earth. The world around us quakes, and suddenly a column of red light, hot, pulsating, and alive, erupts from the ground, reaching into the sky like a demonic pillar. Alexander's body is pulled into the light, and a terrifying scream escapes his lips. He levitates, his limbs contorting unnaturally, as Malachar is torn out of him. The malevolent spirit is dragged into the fissure, fighting until the very last moment, but it ultimately vanishes into the depths, taking the weight of its darkness with it. Alexander's body falls with a heavy thud a few meters away from me. My heart nearly stops, but then I hear it, a faint, uneven heartbeat. I run to him, my heart racing, and fall to my knees by his side. His eyes are half open, his breathing shallow, and his body is covered in wounds. Gently, I cradle his head in my lap, running my fingers through his hair as I fight back the tears threatening to spill. Aria. His voice is a whisper laced with pain, yet it is the most precious sound I've ever heard. He groans my name, each syllable heavy with a sorrow that shatters my heart into pieces. I didn't think I'd see you again, before the end. The weight of his words hits me like a blow, stealing the air from my lungs. I can't accept this. I won't let him go. Hot tears stream down my face, falling onto his pale, wounded skin. I hold his face in both hands, desperate to keep him with me. You can't leave, I plead, my voice trembling, nearly unrecognizable in its desperation. You promised me. You promised you wouldn't leave again. He tries to smile, but it's faint, almost imperceptible, as though even that small act causes him pain. With great effort, Alexander raises a hand and gently brushes away the tears running down my cheeks. His touch is warm, but I can feel the strength draining from his fingers, slipping away like sand through my grasp. My mate, he whispers, the tenderness in his voice tearing my chest apart. My love, I think this time you'll have to let me go. No! My voice breaks into a scream, raw with a terror that echoes across the battlefield. I can't do this. I love you, Alexander. Please stay with me. The words spill out between sobs, my vision blurred by the relentless tears. He holds my hand with a weakness that doesn't belong to the strong man I've always known, but the warmth of his touch is still a fleeting comfort. I love you, he murmurs, but this time, I can't stay. Promise me something, Aria. He looks at me, his blue eyes, now pale, almost faded, meeting mine. In them, I see a deep sadness, but also an acceptance that breaks me further. Anything, I respond without hesitation, desperate to give him any comfort I can. Promise me you'll love again. Far more than you loved me. He will deserve that. My mind struggles to process what he's asking of me, but the urgency in his gaze forces me to nod, even as my heart screams in protest. I promise, I say, my voice cracking. I promise, Alexander. He seems to relax, as though my words were the last thing he needed to hear. His eyes begin to close slowly, as if surrendering to a deep, eternal sleep. And then the world stops. His chest stills, no longer rising and falling, and the faint sound of his heartbeat vanishes, leaving behind a deafening silence. At that moment, it feels as though the entire universe collapses around me. The pain is a tidal wave, consuming me entirely, stripping away every shred of light and hope within me. Everything around me fades to darkness, as though the world itself is in mourning. A thick, suffocating fog of grief and despair surrounds me, an endless abyss where every thought, every beat of my heart, is a silent scream of agony. I hold Alexander in my arms, clinging to him as if somehow I could bring him back. But he is still, and the cruel reality crashes over me. The sound of the battle, the chaos around me, all fades away. There is nothing but the emptiness inside me, a void where love, hope, and life once resided. And now there is only silence. A silence that screams louder than anything I have ever known. If you like it, subscribe, share, comment, and like. If you want to read the book, link in the description.